There is a moment every Batman fan remembers learning about for the first time. Not the place, not the year, just this feeling. A story that refused to be ordinary. A story that demanded to be remembered. A warehouse in a foreign country, a crowbar raised, and a bomb ticking in the shadows. And Batman racing us and meeting his greatest failure. Since the very beginning, Batman's stories, and even Batman's origins, are constructed from loss and grief. The origin everyone knows, where within Crime Alley 2 gunshots are fired, leading to the shattered life of a boy typically depicted as no older than 8 years old. That origin sets the rhythm of his Gotham City crusade for justice, despite it being a practically impossible task, echoing across rooftops and alleys. Jason Todd's death was different, though. It wasn't just a narrative tool, it was a fracture that reached into the medium itself. To understand why, we must look back at Jason, as he is a far more important character now than he's ever been. And we must look at this character not as a casualty, but as a character searching for an identity, with feelings of being lost in himself and betrayed by his father figure. Jason Todd's significance lies not in its unjustified death that was voted for by fans and was a narrow victory for him to die, which led to it reflecting Batman's quote-unquote biggest failure and made him and the reader confront moral questions about consequences and responsibility, and the impact was immediate. The experiment of letting readers vote on life or death sent shockwaves through the comic book industry, setting a precedent for interactive storytelling, reader engagement, and the moral weight of choice in comics, despite how controversial the method may have been. For context, by the way, Jason only dies because there were 72 more votes for him to perish. Robin was more than a sidekick. Where Batman couldn't face trauma, Robin moved forward towards it. Jason Todd was designed to restore this balance, but in doing so, he exposed how fragile it always was. Dick Grayson reframed Batman with humanity and an ability to work as a team. Jason arrived when that light had faded, bringing back energy but also moral tension in the picture. Jason arrived during a time of moral re-evaluation in comics. His anger was visible, his actions were more impulsive than both Dick Grayson, who had come before him, or Tim Drake, who would come after him, and he mirrored Batman's violent tendencies. He forced readers to see the consequences of training a child in the ways of vengeance, something that deep down we all know is cruel and dangerous, despite how cool it looks while drawn in ink. He also searched for his past, not knowing where it lay, leading to a boy discovering his mother may not be who he believed it was. This search drove him towards danger and became the ultimate catalyst for his ultimate tragedy at the hands of Batman's arch-nemesis. His journey emphasized the human cost of Batman's mission and the ignored growing of moral choices in a world of crime, vengeance, and fractured life. Jason's final mission is not driven by heroism, but by a feeling and need for the truth, and that he feels like Batman won't share. He searches for his mother because he wants proof that he is wanted by someone, after he is scolded by Bruce and left angry, emotional, angsty, and confused. Somewhere, the tragedy of a death in a family is that Jason Todd's death is not caused by recklessness and angst alone, it is caused by lost hope. Sheila Haywood, also known as Jason's real mother, is not framed as evil at first. She is afraid, and fear in Gotham, this foreign country, and beyond, is often more dangerous than anything people could imagine, and this leads into the end of why she betrays him. When viewing it, it is clear the Joker does not kill Jason after coming up with a clever strategy. He kills him because he can, and wanted to push Batman as far as possible, because Joker saw it as a case of Batman's rules allowed him to end Jason's life. The beating is not stylized, it is ugly, prolonged, humiliating, and degrading to the Robin. Jason is not allowed dignity, only pain and to suffer. In the end, Batman arrives too late, not because he didn't care or didn't have a need to help, but because he believed he always had time, and on this occasion his luck had run out, leading to the infamous image of Jason. So the comic A Death in a Family permanently altered how mainstream DC Comics, and comic readers in general, understood consequence. Death was no longer as taboo as it once seemed to be. The entire industry learned that audiences would potentially engage with tragedy, especially if it included participation, such as the phone call event leading to Robin's demise. Jason Todd's absence shapes Batman in a new way not seen before, leaving him with a void not felt since the murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne. He becomes colder, more controlling of his allies, and seems to be obsessed with prevention of emotion rather than healing. Every Robin after Jason is shaped by fear, not their own but by Batman's fear of what may happen. A Death in the Family still hurts looking back at it because it refuses to have a happy absolution. It does not offer the comfort or reassurance that suffering was necessary for growth. Jason Todd does not die to teach Batman a lesson that neatly corrects his way of thinking or his moral codes. He dies because the man-made system around him was set up from the start for his failure, no matter how unintentional, and the story never pretends it's any different. At the time of its release, the comic was met with discomfort discomfort and some outrage, not simply because a Robin died in a brutally violent way, but because the narrative revealed the vulnerability of superhero ethics. Batman's rules had always been framed as noble and honourable restraint, but a death in the family reframed them as a ticking time bomb destined for failure at one point or another. Jason's death forces the reader to confront an unbearable possibility that refusing to act decisively can be just as violent an act as pulling the trigger to the Wayne parents. This was not an argument the genre was prepared to have at the time. The backlash wasn't about Jason's situation alone, it was about what his death implied about Batman and for comic heroes going forward. The controversy surrounding the reader vote only deepened this wound. By allowing audiences to decide Jason's fate, DC transformed a fictional tragedy into a collective responsibility. That participation stripped away the remaining distance and comfort, forcing readers to reckon and look at their own appetite and curiosity for tragedy and consequence. By doing so, the comic transformed from just a story into an indictment. What makes A Death in the Family necessary is it permanently denied comics the luxury of innocence and the hero winning. After Jason Todd, death could no longer be symbolic alone. It had to leave residue, it had to change behaviour. Batman becomes colder, more controlling, more haunted, and borderline paranoid at times. Not because he has learned, but because grief struggles to teach lessons. It'll simply sit and rot away at you. Jason's absence reshapes every relationship that follows, every Robin that comes after him, every boundary Batman draws in fear of repeating the same mistake again and again. Jason's continued relevance across media is proof that the story never healed. In Under the Red Hood, Jason returns not as a villain to be defeated, but as a moral contradiction that Batman can't get through his head. Jason's anger is not framed as corruption, it is framed as a response. He remembers what Batman has tried to prioritise. Years later, in the game Arkham Knight, the idea is taken even further, where Jason becomes another manifestation of unresolved trauma, replayed endlessly through hallucination and the Joker disease, taunting Batman's mind. His pain is not resolved through confrontation, but through Batman's acknowledgement, quiet admission that Batman was wrong to believe his heroic mission could always survive without casualties on either side of good or evil. Nor should he. His story exists in tension, he is never forgotten, and he's neither hero nor villain. He is a scar that refuses to fade away across comics, animation, and games. Jason's presence continues to question the ethics of Batman's war, not with philosophy, but with memory. A Death in the Family continues to endure because it has denied closure since it came out almost 40 years ago. Batman does not fix his failures, Jason does not find peace, and the Joker is never going to be meaningfully punished. And the reader is not reassured of anything. The story insists that some mistakes are permanent, and that losses cannot be reframed as growth. And that stands as it does. When protected too fiercely, love can become accidental instruments of cruelty. Jason died because Batman believed, even unknowingly, the mission mattered more than his own child, and that belief still echoes every time Batman chooses restraint and calls it justice. In conclusion, Jason never escaped that warehouse, Batman just learned to live with it.